Godzilla 2. What some would consider an inferior sequel to, well, what I would call a classic original. Very different. It's basically a strategy game, kind of in the Civilization sort of style. Everything's on what you might think of as a game board. There are rules and all of that wonderful business. Now this first mission's fairly straightforward. You have two monsters to deal with, Godzilla and Baragan. You're given a fairly sizable opening force to deal with them. Something you should not get used to. Oftentimes in levels you'll have to order most of your forces, and by most I don't want to mislead you into thinking that it's a lot, because it isn't. And all of this stuff, all of these tanks and all these little missile trucks, all of your A-10 rip-offs, all of that stuff will not, in general, outside of this mission, be your big damage dealing force. They can deal with a monster. But as you'll find out in later stages, these are not units to rely on, they're units to pin things down with. Nevertheless, do not piss away your forces. I don't care what it is. Maybe a radar car. Do not piss away anything. You have essentially two objectives to fulfill with these opening forces. One is to move all of your A-10s down to the mountains in the south. That's where Baragan's gonna appear. You can also send your fighters down there, which I sent one, but let's be honest, right now fighters are a piece of shit. You will never, ever, ever find use for a fighter other than as cannon fodder. Most of the rest of this stuff, however, can do some damage, and I do stress the some. Now what we have there that I'm moving up is a nuclear bomb. You can use that against Godzilla to distract him, to draw him away from, well, draw him away from the nuclear plant, or to draw him to a place for an ambush, whatever. I've never actually used it. In fact, there's another thing in this stage called a destroyer that can kill Godzilla very easily. I have never used that either. What you have here, if you use it wisely, is, in my experience, sufficient to deal with the monster threats that you're up against. Cannot say the same for later missions. Especially when they bring in fucking Rodan. But that'll be for another time. So after you move your A-10s down south, move your missile trucks up to meet Godzilla. All of them. And I tried to kind of balance things out and have a tank nearby with two missile trucks in reserve. But that's mainly being conservative there. Those missile trucks are your bread and butter in this level. They will deal with Godzilla. Later on, after you take out Baragan, you have your A-10s. Those will help immensely. Now bear in mind, these monsters, when you damage them, they regenerate. How much? I've never really seen a particular pattern, but they do regenerate after their turn. It can be a little life, it can be a lot. You never know. Which is why you want to kill them and kill them quickly, especially pin them down. So here's our first bit of action. An A-10 and Baragan. You'll notice that combat is turn-based and reliant on these slots. The slots have two colors, blue and red. Red symbols are bonuses for the monsters. Blue symbols are bonuses for you. And if you, the exception being that if you line up 3 symbols, no matter what they are, that is to your benefit. And it doesn't matter what it is. Any vehicle that gets 3, a triple bonus, does a lot of damage. Unless they're using machine gun. Machine guns just suck anyway. Now, part of the reason I use A10s on Baragan is because there's a... I don't understand exactly how it works, but him being a ground-based enemy means that the A10s are more difficult for him to hit. So if possible, use planes against Baragan. Godzilla's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't hit them as well, and other times he does. Generally dealing with his fire. But it doesn't matter anyway. You want to use missile trucks against him. And Godzilla is a serious asshole. If he really decides he wants to, he can kill pretty much anything you have in one hit. So be ready to pull back. Don't bunch your forces up. Because after a battle like that, where I took some damage, you want to be able to retreat. That's why I leave these gaps in the area. In the early game, try to wear Godzilla down a bit. It's not necessarily always so successful. I try to keep his life as low as I can for when the A10s come back so I can just easily finish him off. This game I almost had to use the destroyer, but I couldn't figure it out. Regardless, I managed to kill Godzilla with conventional troops.